about it, super honest, not sneaky, not instant gratification, like nothing like
The
that.
way she needs to do it.
Yeah, like she planned it and she had like a glass of wine. And when it started, I was like, I don't like this and our relationship's going to change and I'm good. Like I started acting different toward her and it was like all in my head. And then I just had to do like the steps on it, honestly. And I kind of like took a step back. I'm like, I'm literally like, this isn't fair what I'm doing. So then.
Welcome to the show, Taylor.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Taylor and I met almost 4 years ago when I was in LA to get sober, and I think we hit it off like right away as friends. And like we went to the same meetings together. You gave me rides all the time because I was just like a broke boy early in sobriety, and we were both from New Jersey. And as soon as I found out you're from New Jersey, I'm like, okay, we're instant friends.
Right.
Like, and but I don't know your story. Like we
But we
talked.
had, sorry to interrupt, we already had, I was like, I like this dude. And then, like, when you said you're from Jersey, I'm like, oh, yeah, now it makes sense.
That
That,
makes sense. It was
like,
the attitude.
yeah.
Yeah, and I just, we were instant friends, and then I don't know your story though. I know, like that you ended up in L.A. Obviously, that's where we met,
Mhm.
and I know that like you're from Jersey because you have a Jersey state tattooed on your foot, I think, because
That's
I
a
have
good memory.
I have it on my arm.
Yeah.
So I have a decent memory, especially when it comes to like tattoos, like unique ones or ones that match me or whatever.
Yeah.
Like I remember that, especially Jersey people. Like, so when we met, we were both. What? How? No, I want to do this. What's your sober date right now? What is your sober date?
March 8th, 2017.
March 8th, 2017, and we met a year later, a little over a year later.
Yeah.
So, what was going on for you in March of 2017 to where you decided you were going to stop drinking? Or what was your DOC? Was it drinking or was it drugs?
Both.
Okay.
So the drinking has always been a huge part of my life since very young,
Jersey.
smoking weed. And so it was manageable. Like I was probably a functioning addict alcoholic, right? And what brought me down was cocaine. So I think I'm actually super grateful for the like coke addiction because I think I would have kept on just drinking and smoking weed and kind of living this mundane life, like not really like living my full potential. I always wanted to travel. I wasn't traveling. Um, and all my free time and money or like extra money and extra time was going toward the bar and doing coke and like I couldn't really, I've thought about this a few times because there's been like people say like the consequences and all this stuff, but like that's not actually what brought me into recovery. Like I've had worse consequences before this. And I try to like put my finger on it when I've told my story many times, but I do just believe, like I had just said before, it's just this divine intervention. Like you can't really put a finger on it or like get people to get to that place of desperation. It just happens. Like just so sick and tired of the bullshit. So my last night drinking, I had like one of those last times that was super fun. Like it was like all day drinking and bartending, all like stayed at the bar with all my friends all night. Had said like 2 weeks previous, like I'm not doing coke anymore, right? Like we do. And um and then a few of the guys had left to go to West Hollywood to pick up and like came back and like gave me my own fat rock. Like I don't know if this is bad to talk about on here.
No, no, I've had way worse, so you can keep going.
You what?
People have talked way worse. It's fine.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
So
there
like
is no. Yeah, you're good.
yeah, so like I didn't even really ask for it. I didn't put money in it. Like it was just like handed to me and it was like that mental block. I didn't even think like, oh, I said I wasn't gonna do it, like it was just like fuck yeah, and then like went all night, like just I probably drank more. It was one of my biggest drinking nights. Like I had a lot of
Well,
alcohol.
Coke and alcohol go together like fucking, you know what I mean? Like that I have never talked to anybody on this show or anybody really anywhere that was like, "Oh yeah, I loved Coke, but I hated alcohol." Or I loved it. You know what I mean? Like you don't hear that. If you're doing coke, you're mostly drinking with it. I feel like it's like because it's the bar scene, it's a party scene. It
Hmm.
wasn't frowned upon. You're not you're snort. It's like more of a like shared drug. It
Yeah.
gets dark eventually. That's how it starts though. Unless you get out early enough like you do, because what ends up happening is then you're by yourself in the corner of your room,
Yeah.
shooting coke and drinking by yourself too. I've heard that.
Everyone's stories of them like peeking out the window and like, yeah, I didn't
Yeah.
get that. Yeah.
Now, now you ended up in LA. When did you let's go all the way back. You grew up in Jersey.
Grew up in Jersey, around 19, 20 years old, moved to LA. I was 20.
Why?
My sister lived here and she
Okay.
got pregnant and I wanted to be out here. Like I had visited, it was like sunny and beautiful and open minded. And I just knew I didn't belong in this small town in New Jersey. I wanted like more, you know. Um, I've always had that curious spirit. So I kind of just moved my restaurant job and community college deal over here. Moved with a few friends and like partied for the next 3, 4 years. Yeah, that was how it went.
You made well, I mean, you're working in a bar. I'm sure it's easy to make fast friends in LA if you're working in a bar and you're 20, 21 years old.
Yeah, it was. It was. That's like even some friends I still have were some people I worked with at Cabo Cantina in Venice. That's where it started. And that's where the partying started, down on that block in Venice by the pier, by the Venice Pier. Yeah. So anyway, so yeah, I had moved over and then yeah, I didn't come here for recovery like a lot of people do. Yeah. It's a great place to come for recovery. I didn't even know that and I didn't think I was coming to get recovered
It's
whatsoever.
crazy. I didn't realize until I was there, and then when you look back, you remember like watching Intervention and you're like every time you're watching Intervention like we got a great place for you in Southern California and I never even still put two and two together that LA would be great for recovery. Like I only went there because they accepted cannabis and they used cannabis at the sober living in LA that I went to.
Oh,
Like
really?
that yeah, I don't even think it's there anymore. High Sobriety is where I went in Culver City, where you don't smoke, and I still don't smoke right now to this day. Because the whole point was they get you up with the doctor too, and that doctor is like a therapist, kind of like where they help you learn how to use cannabis as a medicine, not as a drug. So for me, changing my relationship was very important. So smoking it is an instant escape, right? You feel the effects pretty quickly. But if I take a capsule with my blood pressure medicine as medicine, it works its way through my system in an hour or two, and my anxiety's down and my depression's down, and I get through, and I can sleep better at night. But again, it's not something that I'm escaping with because like I snorted pills and not ate pills because I wanted to feel it right away. I chugged a drink and not sipped a drink, to feel the effects right away. So it was important to me to have a relationship with cannabis to where, and I don't call it weed, I want to call it cannabis, because it to me it's that relationship again changing, and that's helped, and now if I'm like having a bad day, I'll make sure to not even use one of my edibles, because I want to process it completely clear. I
Right.
want to be completely sitting in the shit is what I call it. That's what I always say, sit in the shit. And that's how I want to process things. And then once I feel like I processed it, then I'm like, okay, now I'll take my nighttime meds. Now I'll lay down and just like fall asleep because I've had severe insomnia since I was 8, 27 years,
Me too.
like I'm talking 2 to 3 hours of sleep a night
Yeah.
max. And it's like the rage kind of insomnia that like where I want to like hurt myself, not like, off myself, but like hurt myself so that I have enough pain that I pass out.
Mm-hmm.
Like I used to like slam my hands and body into walls in order to like feel pain so that I would fall asleep. Like, I mean, really dark
God.
shit,
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
how bad insomnia gets though for people when you've been awake for 3, 4 days straight
Well, again, your mind can't be like functioning properly off that little sleep.
and
Absolutely.
and and it's just a frustrating thing, that happens. And the cannabis does help with that because I don't like trazodone, I don't like Seroquel, I don't like the other meds. Like I tried
Yeah.
trazodone in rehab, and
Yeah.
I hate it. How I felt. Like
That's
you have
say. Yeah.
10 minutes later, if you don't pass out right then, you're gonna feel drunk, and then you're gonna feel drunk again in the morning. Like you
Oh,
know.
it's that like groggy.
Oh, it's awful. It's awful. I hated it. Yeah. So
I
yeah, the
was
kind of
hearing today about this. It actually doesn't get you high at all, but it's like this full spectrum, like very reputable company that does full spectrum CBD for sleep, and it has like the four cannabinoids or whatever.
yeah.
And the acupuncturist at the sober living I work at was telling me about it because I still have a hard time sleeping. I'm about to be 5 years sober, and I still don't have my sleep.
Yeah.
Like because I refuse to take anything, So it's like it's silly. I'm gonna try this CBD stuff.
Yeah. And the CBD's safe. The
Yeah,
CBD's really safe. It's not triggering at all. And I don't even think the cannabis is triggering. I think a trigger is a funny word, a funny thing to where like, yeah, I was an opiate user, which was a downer, and yeah, cannabis can be a downer, but it's again the whys and the hows. It's why am I using this?
it's the escaping.
Yeah, how and why am I doing this? Am I doing this to escape, or am I doing this as a medicine? Because medicine's there for us to use for a reason.
Right.
I was just the one that abused it for many years and just need to change that mindset. When did you start drinking? Were you a teenager in Jersey drinking already? Like, because I mean, I remember being in Jersey, and you're talking woods parties, you're talking basement parties, you're talking garage party. Like,
Yeah.
Jersey, you can walk around your towns and just like with Gatorade bottles with vodka in it. Like
That
that's Jersey.
we used to get the Snapple bottle
Yeah.
at Captain Morgan because it's the same color as Snapple.
Yep. Yes, it
We
is.
take it into the bowling alley. All of us get shipping.
That's such a Jersey thing. Because I did that shit too. Westbrook bowling lanes. Oh my god, we would just sneak in Gatorade, vodka. We would use Gatorade though because we would tell ourselves because we're dumb fucking eighth graders, mature eighth graders, that Gatorade gets electrolytes and it'll get into your blood quicker, so you get drunker. Fuck out of here.
Get more drunk or drunk.
We used to, oh my god, we used to give blood in our school, like do the blood drives,
Yeah.
and we would get so drunk that night, knowing that like one beer is going to equal three.
Yeah.
Like it was so.
Everyone did in my school too. Yeah.
Were you
Every
south? Were you north or south or central?
Central. Yeah.
Okay, so you weren't that far from me.
Point Pleasant. Where's your hometown?
Oh shit, right outside of Camden, Cherry Hill.
Oh, Cherry Hill. So my family, we lived in West Hampton for like a year and a half,
Oh, okay.
or Point Pleasant. And then
Yeah.
basically grew up in Point Pleasant, like riding bikes around town.
Yeah, I say Cherry Hill. I grew up in Mount Ephraim and Audubon, that it's right outside of Cherry Hill, Camden.
Hmm.
But yeah, everyone knows Cherry Hill when you say that. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's literally like the Walt Whitman entrance. It was at the end, like I could see the Walt Whitman entrance for the bridge from like where I grew up
Hmm.
in
Hmm.
Audubon. Like it's so my accent is Philly, like and everything. Like and it was so annoying.
Philly. It's so
What?
your accent is like a Philly accent. It's so
Oh
true.
yeah, I mean, I was 5 minutes. I grew up 5 minutes. It would take me to get to a Flyers game, including going over the bridge.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, literally door to door, it was 7 minutes, I think, to leave my house and to be parked over at a Flyers game. 'Cause I went to Flyers more than anything. Philly's a lot too. 7 minutes. That's it.
Right
Paying
there.
the toll and everything. Like literally right there. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was easier to go over to South Philly than it was to get into Camden. That's how fucked up it was. Like,
Ah,
because
you're super close to the bridge. Like you're right there.
and yeah, when you go into Camden, there's so many potholes everywhere. You can't like drive, and then like yeah, and then it wasn't. I was never doing anything good in Camden.
No. The thing about Camden is like friends I went to school with going to get heroin in Camden. That's
Yep.
it. Yes. There was like when you were out here and when we met, there was like a solid crew of
Jersey.
going.
Danny, yeah, not Danny. Danny was up in Connecticut, but Richie, Richie, he passed away a couple years ago from an overdose.
No, I didn't know that.
He was a Jersey dude. He was up from Newark, and I met him, in the Santa Monica meetings and all that. And we had this Jersey crew of people we all knew in sobriety. We used to walk around, but he had his relapse, and unfortunately,
Familiar. I wonder if I know him.
he might even went to yours. If you worked with Devin, he was in Devin's sober living or Devin's rehab.
Yeah, I didn't work with her, but yeah.
Because I remember, like, on my show, because she was on earlier on, and she told me that, his death actually made her to not get close to clients anymore. And she went to work in the back office instead because she was that affected by his death,
It's
Yeah, it's
Oh,
rough out there, obviously. So
yeah.
you started in Jersey as a teenager, like I did, just bringing shit into bowling alleys and being reckless.
Yeah, reckless. And probably even before, probably like 11, 10, 11 years old, started drinking,
11 was my first drink. I always talk about it. 11 was Captain and Coke was my first drink watching The Outsiders.
That's funny. You remember the moment.
Well,
I
it was because we wanted to be cool like the Greasers. And we went into
yeah,
my parents' basement and my parents weren't drinkers, but they threw huge parties. So they always had like an overstock of alcohol in the basement from their previous party. And there was Captain. And I was like, this guy looks cool, because the Captain's all like fucking up on the rock and looking all cool, like Captain Hook. And I was like, this guy looks cool, and my best friend, and we made Captain and Coke, and we saw our parents do it that way. 'Cause
right.
you couldn't Google shit. This was 1997. You couldn't Google anything. So, we mixed Captain and Coke. And then on Saturdays when he would sleep over, we'd have like a glass of Captain and Coke and watch The Outsiders and think we were cool like them.
That's funny. That's funny.
Yeah.
I think my first time actually drunk was in a friend's basement as well, where their parents had like a whole bar down there, and we drank tequila. And I remember
Ugh.
next morning I felt like death. I had never felt like that in my life. And it's crazy that I drank again.
I was going to say, it really stopped you.
Yeah, really stopped me. Not. And I remember like we went to the beach. It was like summer, and like eating pretzels and trying to drink water and like dying, didn't make a difference whatsoever. I said, tequila is not my drink. Can't drink tequila. So moved
Did
on.
you ever did you ever drink it again?
So throughout high school,
I already know your answer because you started it with, so
oh,
here's my excuse.
well, throughout high school is vodka. Then that became a problem. I'm like, oh, it's the vodka. And then out here drinking at the bars, I only drank tequila, but it had to be like the expensive. I was like bougie with my.
It's got to be Jose. It's got to be like the really good stuff.
Yeah, it can't be Jose. It has to be like Casamigo. I'm like so.
Oh, fancy, fancy.
Well, when you're a bartender or work in that industry, you kind of get the hookup and you
That's
get
true.
spoiled.
Yeah.
And that contributed to my alcoholism for sure.
Let's talk about that. Are you still a bartender? Because I'm pretty sure you were a bartender when we met when you were a year sober.
Yeah, so I bartended for 4 years in my recovery. Um, there
Even
were
in New Zealand?
so there
Spoiler
were
alert, everybody, she lived in New Zealand for a bit in
live in New
sobriety.
Zealand, moved to New Zealand right after I met you.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I went back to PA and then all of a sudden you were in New
Mhm.
Zealand.
Yeah, you left and then I left. Uh-huh.
Yeah. And I was like kind of not worried, but like I could have swore I didn't think you relapse, but like, when you're like in a different country, you're posting all these pictures of like tables of like food settings. I'm like, oh, I hope that's not her drink. Like, you know what I mean? Like maybe that's somebody else's drink. I have faith in Taylor. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, well, and we went and traveled a lot, and I was dating this guy there, and he's a normie, and he drank,
so
um,
maybe I was seeing his drinks on the table then.
probably, yeah,
Oof.
and it's a huge drinking culture over there. But I had a really good community of friends, and I went to some meetings and I didn't like them. I was super fixed on the differences, and
There's
I
so
was like,
many.
through this, yeah. So I didn't like it. I went to probably a handful of meetings, but then this blessing happened. Um, like the family friends of mine had a friend who struggles with some mental illness stuff and addiction, and they asked me to help her. So I start taking her through the book and show her the steps. And I only went to meetings to like once in a while to bring her to one, just to like show her what's up. And that saved me. I don't know. It's not like I wanted to drink, but I don't know if I would have stayed sober if that didn't come along. Like, but I did practice my program, like you were saying, like using the steps, um reading the On Awakening reading on page 86 out of the big book. Like that was always like my foundation, and I kept my foundation, kept in touch with my sponsor Marshall. And I kept it solid because I built it solid before I left.
I
And
love Bobby so much. I know you said Marshall, but we always said
you
different
call him
names.
Bobby.
We call him, no, we always said different names to each other.
Oh,
We've always called each other by different names. So her sponsor is somebody that I saw literally every night at 11 p.m. at my daily late night meeting that I used to go to. And him and I actually had talked about him recently because he made fun of me when I got my progress, not perfection tattoo, because he's like, you don't even know what the word perfection means, I bet. And he was right. I had no idea. We had looked up in the dictionary. I
It's
had to
all
look it up.
about this perfection thing. We talk about this constantly.
And exactly. So he threw that, but him and I were good friends ever since then. I always sat with him and would mess with him. And he's an old timer that just has amazing sobriety. And so
Cute.
we've never called each other by our actual first names. He still sends me like, Happy Merry Christmas and all that kind of stuff. I'm always like,
Aw.
thanks, Joe. Like, like we've never called each other. Like I almost forgot his name once because I hardly ever, and whenever I call him Marshall, it's to somebody else to reference him.
Right.
Besides that,
This podcast is also sponsored by BetterHelp. If you are looking for therapy and not able to get something right away locally, you can do that with them. Within 48 hours, you can find a therapist to get on telehealth with you. I mean, I haven't heard anything but great things from people that have already done it, that watch my show or listen to my show. If you're looking to get 10% off your first month, you can go to betterhelp.com/MJsPNPMCA. That is betterhelp.com/MJsPNPMCA.
and it's a shame because the Zoom meetings are so popular now, and because of COVID, like Zoom meetings are through the roof, and it's so much more accessible because you were there before COVID. When did you come back?
Right. So I came back in October of 2019. So I started bartending again and I was doing this other job and I was going to meetings once in a while, but not really like jumping back into it yet. And then, yeah, COVID hit. Um, and you know what? It's crazy. I had never been as involved in AA as I have been this past year. Once everything opened up again, like beginning of 2021, I got like super involved and plugged in. And I never had that experience. I didn't want to have that experience. I wanted to have like this big life and have AA on the side as like my
Side
back,
chick.
but like not make it my whole life. And then, throughout your recovery, like your program changes.
It
And
does.
I wasn't working as much. I had more time. So I like got plugged in, started helping people. And this whole kind of domino effect happened where I got in this car accident, right? And I'm like, this is horrible. I was in a lot of pain. I had a lawyer. It was like this whole thing. And I don't like that stuff. I didn't want the lawyer. I didn't want to deal with it. But we just take the next step. So I did it. And then I wasn't working. And so I'm helping others and like just having commitments, going to late night again all the time. Late night's like popping off.
I miss
It is
late
crazy.
night. I tried getting late night going to my meeting center just as like straight up an homage to like I heard the best messages there. It's the best for because like it's people our age and you're not going there to see, a rehab there. Like if you go to Marina at 8 p.m., forget about it. You're not even going to get a seat because there's four
Yeah.
different sober livings or rehabs that are there making the guys go there, girls
It's
go there.
still, yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. So when you go there at 8 p.m., it's slammed with all these different, which is good. Get them there. That's the whole point. But
Yeah.
if you want some real raw recovery from people our age, and if you're in LA, Marina Del Rey, Marina Center, 11 p.m. nightly has been like a staple for anybody, pretty much, except for Marshall's not under 30, but everybody else is like our age and they're younger. It's like young people's AA. I feel like we're like we talk this crosstalk, but like in a fun way. Like it's fun cross. Like I'll never forget this dude came walking out of the bathroom. And so the bathroom was part of the meeting center. You weren't walking into another room. People that don't know, the bathroom is you walk out of the bathroom and you're in the meeting. You're in the meeting. And
No.
there's no hallway. And this dude walks out of the bathroom, sits crisscross applesauce in front of the podium, and raises his hand and says, "I just smoked meth in the bathroom and I don't know how to stop." Uh, that's late night.
My face looks surprised right now, but the thing is that is late night. Like
That's late night.
nothing at late night after you go there for a while, you're like, yeah, this is the way it is. I guess some woman last night I was at Marina Center and some woman was like, how is there no toilet paper in the women's bathroom? I had to use like
There's a women's bathroom.
well, not technically, but if you know one's women's, one's men, but no
Okay.
one knows it, of course. Um,
See,
but it's like we're like, this is Marina Center.
Bring a napkin in, honey.
Yeah, gotta bring it.
Oh, I love that place. I do miss that. It was, it was always a interesting nooner, but my nooner I preferred was in 26 and Broad,
Mm,
and where we would go a lot too. And I
mm.
would see you a lot there. And I think I saw you speak there. No, yeah, I did see you speak there
Probably the
once.
Thursday noon meeting. Kara and I would always go to that one. Remember?
Yeah, how's she doing?
I
Yeah.
don't think she would mind us talking about it. It's kind of cool, maybe for some people. I don't know. She's not sober anymore, but she's not.
Off the rails.
She's not off the rails. She's going to school, super into it. Like,
Did she just get accepted into law school?
she's applying to law school. She's
Okay.
taking the LSATs. She has
That's
like
what
all honors classes, 3.95 GPA. Like, so passionate about school. Like, she says she realized that her like ism thing is more about her. Maybe do cut this out. She wouldn't mind me sharing with you though. Her eating disorder like makes her feel like she has the ism, and that's why she related so much. And like that had a lot to do with her meth use as a young girl,
Yeah.
and stuff like that, and that it was more surrounded around this eating disorder. So she works on that, and she's doing really well, and she like drinks here and there, but it's like not out of control.
No, it's like at a party. Like there's like her family is partiers. Like they know how to throw a party. Her family, I feel like,
Yeah,
and they travel. Like she goes to like Europe all the time and
and
shit.
she got back from Africa.
I saw, yeah, like you're really close family. So like I never judged it because I did it myself, so I get it.
So you get it. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean. But I would just,
Sorry, go ahead.
I didn't want to ever be like, "Are you good?"
Yeah.
And be like, so it's weird for me to do that, and especially as a guy to a woman, it's even weirder. I don't want to seem like I'm creepy or being, you know what I mean, like slide into DMs like, "Well, you need anything?
Yeah.
Like I never, like." So I was just like letting it be, and just like I see your stories, I see your posts, I'm like, hey, that's awesome. She's she's doing it.
She's solid. I mean, and who knows? Like, I don't know.
And that was the other relief, was seeing you with her all the time. Like I would see her post with you, or you post with her, and I'm like, okay, if she's with Taylor, she's not out of control.
Yeah, it's so weird. So when it first happened, Kira decided, it was like a 3-month premeditation, talking to everyone about it, super honest, not sneaky, not instant gratification, like nothing like
The
that.
way she needs to do it.
Yeah, like she planned it, and she had like a glass of wine. And when it started, I was like, I don't like this, and our relationship's gonna change, and I'm good. Like, I started acting different toward her, and it was like all in my head. And then I just had to do like the steps on it, honestly. And I kind of like took a step back. I'm like, I'm literally like, this isn't fair what I'm doing. So then I kind of let that go. And like our relationship has not changed at all. Like, we're still best friends. She's fine. Like, she's still really healthy. She uses the steps when she's off center for like, yeah, like you did. Exactly. So I think if you take the healthy tools, and some people, everyone's story is not the same. I used to be super close-minded. I was like, sober, no Xanax, no weed, no nothing. Like, this is how we do it. Like, it's such bullshit. I've got an open mind from being in AA for so long and seeing people's stories be really different. And it's helped me personally.
Yeah, this show has really helped me to get different perspectives on a lot of people's stories, and a lot of people's journeys and how they do things, because none of our addictions look the same. So why should our recoveries look the same?
Exactly.
Like at the end of the day, this is a long journey. We have a long life ahead of us. And like, yeah, one day at a time is like the phrase, but like I lived my addiction 1 minute at a time. Like, like one day at a time is slowed up pace in comparison to what I was doing before. There were so many times where I had, I was in the 30s, perk 30s. And there were so many times where it was like 10 o'clock at night. I was already high as hell. I could have easily passed out, but I really wanted to snort one more pill.
Right.
And I would say to myself, well, I'll figure out tomorrow's when I wake up. I'm going to do this one now. And then I would do that last one. That wouldn't even really get me high. It was just a matter of I wanted to snort something. I'm sure you can, relate.
The phenomenon of craving, can't even help it,
And well, it's also the addiction to snorting. I was addicted to snorting as much as I was
This episode is sponsored by MJ's Progress Not Perfection Meeting Center Association. We are in our meeting center where we do all these meetings for mental health and addiction. I can do this podcast anywhere. I can do this at home. I can do this in a closet. I can do this in a basement. It doesn't matter. All I need is somebody else to talk to about addiction and recovery. What I can't do from anywhere is help people with their addiction and their mental health problems. So if you can help out, we do have a Venmo, we have a Cash App, we have a PayPal, we have an address you can send a check to, and all the money that gets donated goes towards rent, goes towards keeping the lights on, and goes towards keeping the internet on. So please, if you can give $5, $10, $20, it doesn't matter. Anything you can is so appreciated. And if you are a local business, if you're a national business, whatever, and you want to be a part of what we're doing, you can reach out to me and we can talk about how you can be a sponsor. But I'll let you get back to the episode.
Yeah. She's fine. Yeah, we can keep it in. I don't know what I said. Did I say anything private? I don't know, or bad?
No. About yourself or her?
Her. No, I don't
No.
care. If you put anything about me, I don't give a fuck.
No, it was nothing said bad or anything. We talked literally about her traveling and about why she felt like, she didn't, necessarily need it anymore. And it made sense.
Did I say anything about her eating disorder? I don't know if she would want that in there.
I don't remember, but I will go back through and make sure. And if it is, I'll take it out.
I'll ask her because this is a big thing, and she might be down to keep it in if it helps other people. Because I think what I probably, tell me if this rings a bell, that I was saying that she feels like she has the ism because of she does have an eating disorder, and she had come in the rooms because of that. However, she realized it was more of that and not the addiction.
Yeah, that's what you had said, though.
Yeah,
that's actually what you had said. Now that I think about it, you did
Kira,
mention it.
Let's ask her, because when I was talking to JD, I told him this is all I said. So we want to ask you if it's okay, because if it's not, we'll take it right out. I said that Kira feels like she relates, and all the stuff in AA, she relates to a lot because she feels she has the ism. However, she realized that if she has some eating disorder stuff, it's not about an addiction. So I probably you might want to take that out. What do you think?
No. You don't have to take anything out. But it just pops its head, the ism pops its head out for me in my eating disorder.
Yeah, that's basically what I said.
Yeah, and that's my main thing, and then I go on to other things to escape from the eating disorder.
Right. I think that's exactly what I explained, right, JD?
Yep, that is what you said.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we just want to make sure you're okay with your eating disorder, that being on a podcast that's public.
I'm okay with any of it.
Okay, cool. Okay.
How many beans?
20.
Make sure that
Okay, cool. That's settled. Kira's very open. She doesn't usually care.
Yeah. I think that a lot of us are like that. When we get to the point where once our family and closest friends know everything, it's I don't give a shit anymore. I have nothing else to hide anymore.
There's nothing to hide. AA makes you so open.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I found is that I got a lot more comfortable with who I am, because of, the shit I would talk about in meetings all the time, at the Nooners, when I met you two. It was, that was my first time opening up for, where I felt comfortable saying something and knowing that nobody else is in the crowd that's going to judge me because they don't know my past already.
Yeah.
And
the huge thing about AA, opening us up and helping us grow is because I think for me, I've gone through my life, my family was always oh, don't tell anyone we're having money problems. Don't tell anyone that mom and dad cheated on each other, all this shit. And it was everything had to be a secret. And I always disliked that very much. I wanted to share with my friends what was going on, but it wasn't acceptable. And coming to AA and hearing everyone so raw, so raw.
It's still that way for me. I feel what my family, even my parents are they say to me we didn't have alcohol in the house. It's Yeah, we did. That's how I found it. I didn't make this story up. I'm not just like, you think I'm making it up? How my story started? Like, you didn't force me to drink alcohol, but I definitely went into the basement and found dusty bottles of liquor that I opened up and drank.
Yeah, and like not to talk down on our parents, they were raised like that. Like the old school way was like suit up and like look good and
Sweep it under the rug.
other sweep it on, yeah, sweep it under and like keep it together, like outside view matters. And it's like we are complete opposite. We're like, hey, I'm an alcoholic, like I have issues, like this is going on in my life. We tell each other everything. And that's why we're such healthy people, because we're able to like not bottle it all up. I think that's like the huge thing. Like even just like we were talking about this yesterday at a meeting, even just like saying it to someone, like it doesn't even necessarily need to be like sorted out into a solution, but just like saying to someone like, hey, I'm struggling, I'm feeling like this is like I'm having like fears about my relationship and this is happening. It's so embarrassing, but just saying it out like kind of like lets it go, you know?
Yeah, I think the fact that it's important to keep talking out loud, it because when we don't say anything out loud, it's getting stuck in our head, and it's like a pinball machine, like that won't like go down and be let go. We're not releasing it, and it just gets banged around our head, and then all of a sudden it takes over. And I think that we're really healthy people when we're talking,
Yeah.
but we're very unhealthy people the minute that we stop talking, like
Right.
as people in recovery.
And to add to that, like this is such a huge thing in the world of alcoholism, that it's a thinking disease, because it's not about like, hey, I have this fear that like, let's say I feel uncomfortable because I'm trying to think of a good example, like something silly, right? Like my friend did this, right? And you're like, I feel uncomfortable about it. And like, that's a normal feeling. But the fact that we like judge it and then we get down on ourselves and then the self pity starts and we're like, why am I so upset about this? And it's like all this judgment around a normal feeling that all humans experience. But it's like where we sabotage ourselves is where our alcoholism comes in. And that's where it's like a thinking disease. And I think that's the most powerful thing about like saying it and talking about it is like, oh no, this is like a normal feeling and like it's okay. And like, you don't have to go into like it snowballs in our head, like it's like this rabbit hole, right? So
And it definitely is because like a lot of us are overthinkers.
yeah.
Like as addicts, like we overanalyze and overthink, and I think it's like the empaths that are in us, like where we feel so hard or we're overthinking and we want to help you and we can't understand how the things that took me out that made me drink or want to like relapse all the time, like looking back was always the worst thing in the world. Even early recovery, I was so fragile. Like if they didn't do the dishes in my sober living, it was like the worst thing in the world, But now it's like I could get, and I have gotten some horrible news in recovery, and I still don't even think about drinking or the drug.
Right.
But before, it would be the smallest thing in the world, would cause me to, drink or get high over it.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of it is also because of like I found out that you can get strength and that you don't need it's almost I read something somewhere and it's like a horrible thing, but it happens like rats or they're used for experiments all the time. There was an experiment where somebody like dropped them into like literally water and let them tread, and then right before they gave up treading, they pulled them out to let them get a breather and then dropped them in again. And they were about to give up at 15 minutes the first time.
Okay.
15 minutes straight of treading water. They were about to give up. And this time they lasted almost like 60 hours of treading water
Now.
because they kept getting stronger knowing that they could be saved at
Mm,
any time. They could be saved. I need to hold on for I have strength.
that
I
bit of
need,
like this tiny like glimpse of hope that it's gonna be okay keeps
yeah.
you going. That's good shit.
Yeah, it's unfortunate to think about for the rats,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it does show the truth in what hope can actually do for people, and that little crumb of hope can really go a long way for survival for a lot of people that are still stuck in it.
Yeah, and where we get that in the program is like we
Seeing the newcomers come in still. That's
see
where I see it.
that's one, and then also seeing like the people that paved the path for us like actually go through hard stuff and still be in there and stay sober through it. And I think that when I go through hard stuff, it gives me hope, like, oh, you've been 10 years sober and you've obviously been through this and that, I've watched you. And then being like, okay, like I can do this too. um
Yeah, that's why it's important for me to even talk about, like, what's going on with me now. With my wife's disability has like really like halted a lot of plans for us. Because all of a sudden, like, this is something that we need to make sure gets addressed first.
yeah,
Because this is something that's not going away because it's MS. There's no cure for it. It just
yeah,
gets either better, it just gets worse, or it stays the same, but it never really improves or gets better.
yeah.
It can be rested, but for a little bit, but it just progresses. So like, but at the end of the day, like, we don't want to get high over it. We don't want to drink over it. We just want to find ways to make our lives better and more improved.
Yeah, you learn to live with things and accept them, and not fight the flow, because it just, life is unfortunate and not fair. And I'm so sorry you guys are dealing with that.
Yeah, and thank you. And and there's nothing we can do about it. She had almost felt like it was gone inevitable for her, just with different injuries that she's had along the way. And her sister has it, and her sister got it at the same age she got it. And
It's it's a
it's
hurt.
it's not even a hereditary thing. It's just coincidental.
Uh,
Like, yeah, they don't even share full DNA because they have different fathers.
oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. I
Okay,
know. I know. So for it it's not even a genetic disease, and they both got it at the same age of 38.
that's so ironic. Is this something that do they know why people get it?
Yeah, for her, they think it has to do with a lot of concussions that she had.
Okay, okay.
Not 100% sure, but she's had like something like 16 concussions in her life.
Oh, that's a lot.
My wife's clumsy. She's beautifully clumsy. And she knows it. But yeah, so we're figuring it out though, and my point is just the idea of somebody I even like, let alone love and married to, being sick, let alone a disability, would have caused me to drink or get high before.
Absolutely. Yeah,
And now it's just like not even like a thought in my mind.
yeah.
And I definitely a product of what the work can do for you when you put work into it.
Absolutely. That's such a testament of the program. It really is, because those are big things in life that, no one's given a handbook on how to deal with that. But yeah, it gives me hope, and I'm sure many others, that you guys can go through that and stay doing what you're doing and helping others. And that's beautiful, actually.
Yeah, that's why we talk about it, is so that other people know, like, oh, so my day isn't ruined because the dishes weren't done or the house wasn't like.
Yeah, like the little things. And then you hear these things. Okay, I don't have it so bad, and like and you never know, beside that, like you never know who you're going to run into that has a similar situation and is embarrassed and doesn't want to talk about it. And then you guys are out there talking about it, and it's like, oh, like I can talk about this. Like that was a big thing for me this year, was like I'm 4 years in, and I'm like sponsoring people, and I'm like not feeling good about my life. And at first I was like super embarrassed. I'm like, is this like saying the program doesn't work? Like I'm supposed to be like leading people and paving the way, and I'm going to tell people that I'm like feeling like I don't want to be alive and like really not doing well. And I was scared. And then and like, there's times where I wanted to drink, but like I didn't, the thought comes, and that scared me too, to admit that, because that really hasn't happened much in my sobriety. And it was like, okay, I eventually like started telling people what was going on, and people would ask me like, how long do you have? Like, oh, 4 years, like coming on 5. And people were like, oh yeah, it's 5-year menopause. And I'm like, what the fuck is that? Like, I didn't know this is a thing. Like, what is that? And And then I felt better about it, just hearing that like other people had gone through a really rough time right around when they were hitting 5 years, like this emotional sobriety. And had I not talked about it, I wouldn't have known that and gotten like feeling a little better, you know? And, um, and I don't have to be embarrassed about it, because it shows people, I think often like shares are like, oh, my life was so crappy before I got sober. I have tools now and life is so good. And that's just not the truth. And so to be honest with like newer people, like it isn't easy. Life still happens. And now we have tools and we can stay here and we can share it with each other. I think that was like the biggest thing for me this year, you know, and just being honest about what's really going on.
Yeah, and learning about who you are too.
Yeah.
Because learning who you are as a sober person, as a brand new person, when you started drinking at an earlier age like we did, we never really learned a personality without drinking, especially now for the first time you're in a job that doesn't even revolve around alcohol.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, because yeah, you got sober, but still your job and your day was still revolved around alcohol,
Yeah. I
like
was
as a
at
bartender.
a little bit. Yeah. Absolutely.
Or no, that was before. That was 3 years. So for the last two, right?
What?
You haven't been working in around alcohol for the last 2 years.
Oh, just the past year. I went back after New Zealand. I went back to bartending.
That's what. Okay.
Uh-huh. And then yeah, and what happened this year is like I got in this car accident, and then there was like this identity crisis that had happened along with like not bartending anymore and working in that industry, because I had been in that industry for 14 years and I'm good at it. I know what I'm doing, and I formed a way to like be sober and have a solid foundation and be able to be around that. And now I'm like, what am I going to do with myself? Like, yeah, I'm going to school, but like, what am I good at? This is the only thing I know. And it was really hard for me. And also, like, I had realized, it took a while. I realized that I liked being in this industry. You know, you're the bartender, you're the cool one, everyone wants to be friends with you. It's a lot of attention. And my ego liked that, you know. And then like now I don't have that anymore. And then now I'm trying to grab attention from like meetings. I'm going to a lot of meetings, and I'm like, I want to be like friends with everyone and want everyone to like me and want attention. And like I had to look at all of this, you know. And it's like, even talking about it now, like I'm not proud of that. I don't want to say that, but it's just the truth. And see, these are like the things like emotional sobriety that we like deal with that like aren't a big deal, but they are things that, you know, really eat at you and cause like this self-pity or like feeling bad about yourself, low self-esteem. And like self-esteem is something I had to really work on too, you know. It's like all of it. Like I came in these rooms just to like stop drinking, and now I'm like working on all this like identity stuff and self-esteem and like getting out of self and just helping others, and stop thinking so much about yourself and the attention I'm getting, and like really like being validated by people. I find is like something I heard people saying that a lot in the rooms when I first came in. Like they either think they're like way better than someone or like a piece of shit, right? It's like, and it's all ego based. Like ego isn't just like I'm better than you. Ego is like it's about me, either whether it's good or bad, right? So I came in and I felt like I never related to that because I was in denial about it. And like this year, like realizing that like I do relate to that. And validation from other people is like what makes me feel secure and okay, and what I like try to look for. But I couldn't change that until I was able to see it. And luckily, like my support around me helped me see that. And
Yeah, because you know, even early on though, even if you could see it early on, it still isn't where your sobriety is at that point. You
yeah,
know, early on, it's all right. How do I stop actually drinking first?
right, absolutely.
And then it's okay, I've stopped drinking. Now how do I do this? You know, for me it was how do I be in relationships? You
Hmm.
know, how do I have relationships with friends that aren't revolved around getting fucked up? You
Yeah,
know, because I never knew those kind of friendships because it's all I've known since I was a teenager. Like I haven't had a friendship, you know, where it wasn't revolved around drinking or drugs since like 9, 10 years old, you
yeah,
know. So I was just like, now what? Now what do I do? And how do I do this? And then so that's why like there's always a big deal about obviously people saying recovery or recovered. And for me, it's like I'm recovered from drinking and drugging, but I'm still always going to be in recovery. You
Absolutely.
know, like
We're-
that's how I always will look at those words in the book is I'm in recovery from my mind, but I'm recovered from that for today. You know,
Absolutely.
it's all just for today.
Yeah, and I agree. It's like the recovered part is like the obsession to drink and use has been removed through doing the 12 steps, and continuing to do them, in recovery because it can come back. We're not cured, right? And in recovery because it's a thinking disease. Like, the drugs and alcohol are just what we use to kind of
Yeah.
settle down. But that thinking didn't go away. That didn't get removed.
It's
It's,
so funny. I started therapy again
oh, you did.
recently, and I was doing the intake, and my wife's intake took 45 minutes for hers, and mine took 90 minutes because all the drug questions had a lot longer answers. I felt like I was doing intake for rehab. And she was like, initially they marked down that you needed somebody for mental health and addiction. I was like, I mean, you can send me to an addiction, but I'm not going to therapy for my addiction.
Right.
Like, I have a sponsor that I talk to, that I work with. I sponsor people. I said, I'm not coming to a therapist to talk addiction. I'm coming to talk mental health in my mind. So I was like, she was like, oh, so you're not wanting to get high or get drunk? That's not why you're coming to therapy? I said, not even a little bit. No. I was like, if I was, I would
Addict,
call my sponsor that's going to answer for free and not charge me $100 to answer their phone. I
right.
wouldn't.
Not just talking about my feelings and digging deeper into them. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's something different. Like, to me, therapy is something different than just drinking and drugs. And she was like, okay, then I'll take you off the list for addiction counselors. I said, okay, it's probably a good idea.
Yeah. Yeah. We all need some emotional help. And like you, I started therapy this year as well. And I was really against it for a long time. I saw it work
See,
for other people in the rooms. And I was like, all right, I'll give it a try.
yeah, I did it early on. I did it early on in recovery in LA. I had like three different therapists at one point when I was in rehab and sober living,
Mhm.
for the first like 4 months. But when I came back to Pennsylvania, I didn't get a new therapist.
Okay.
So I've been without one for, 3.5 years now. And so, but, I need it.
Yeah.
And I'm not afraid to say it. I need it.
I think it's
And
a benefit from a therapist. I definitely advocate for that. And now I'm going to school to be one where I was like, screw that before. I don't need that shit. We changed so much. It's so funny.
yeah, like, and I always like make a joke like Tony Soprano even needed a therapist. Like, some of the guys like, oh, I'm a man. I don't need to talk about that. Like there was some dude not arguing with on a Facebook group, but we were going back and forth in the Facebook group, and he was like, I don't need therapy. I don't need to talk about that shit. Like, I'm a man. I know how to handle it. I'm like, listen, Tony Soprano was like the manliest of men, and even he had a therapist. So I'm not sure what you're trying to say about men that go to therapy, but if Tony Soprano needs one, you could probably use one too.
This
And
too on like that your feelings in therapy is a weakness is just like it's actually a strength. Vulnerability is a strength. Being honest is
yeah.
a strength. I mean, yeah.
And to your credit, though, Taylor, Tony Soprano's therapist, she had a therapist because a therapist shouldn't be their own therapist. So it's good that you are getting into therapy at the same time going to school because they would tell you day one, you can't be your own therapist.
That is like the number one rule. Don't get a therapist who doesn't have a therapist.
And don't get a sponsor who doesn't have a sponsor. Do you see that?
Absolutely. It's
Yeah,
like you want to learn something, find someone who knows it really well and does it too.
yeah, that advocates for it and lives it. And you know what I mean? That
Yeah.
lives their life that way because they believe in it that much.
Mm-hmm.
I think you get the better experience. But congrats on 5 years because today, technically, we're going to is 5 years for you because I am going to release this on March 8th.
Yay.
So, not to jump ahead a little bit, but congrats on 5 years. Like, and so happy to know you and get to know you and get to know you more now. But obviously, you, like you and Kira, like everybody was so instrumental for me in those first 4 months that I've kept in contact with all of you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like over the what?
I'm so glad we kept in touch.
Yeah, over the last 4 years, I've been gone almost 4 years now. And it's been so important to me to like stay in touch with everybody that was so instrumental to like me early recovery, not knowing who I was yet, and just in the infancy of who I am today.
Yeah. Yeah.
So thank you for that, because you and your awesome sponsor, Matt and Kira, and everybody has been incredible for me.
I'm so glad. I mean, these people play such a huge role in our lives, you know. We like, this program, we save each other. And I'm sure there's so many times where you helped me too. I remember that meeting and coming every Thursday, and I have a dog here. Want to see Rex get in the video? Here, I'll show you.
Hi.
Rex, come here. She's a sober dog. Can you see her?
Hi, baby. Hi, baby. Hi.
Do you know Dano?
No.
Is his dog. He's in recovery.
Maybe I do. I don't. Yeah. It's so funny. I had the other person from 26 and Broad with that. Oh my God. Now I'm blanking on her name, because she came on my show and she had her cats in the video and they went all over her. But she went to the Nooner meeting too. Why am I blanking? I feel so bad that I can't. I'm like blanking right now.
Was it
And
Abby?
Ellery.
Ellery. Do I know her? I don't know.
Ellery. She's sober today. But she was like taller, blonde, long hair, and maybe she didn't go on Thursdays when you two did, but she was always at the Nooner too. But when she did her interview, her cats were fighting, and it was hilarious. And her one cat kept biting her face during it. So but it was so awesome to catching up with you and seeing you again, and congrats again.
Thank you so much. It's so good to see you too.
You
Thanks
too.
for
I'll
having
talk.
me here.
Of course. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
All right. Bye.
Bye.